Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Today we will be covering the autonomic nervous system of human nervous system. We know that there are two parts of the nervous system. One is the somatic nervous system and other is the autonomic nervous system. Now we know that somatic nervous system is under voluntary control. We can control the movements of the body and we can control many other functions of the body which are under somatic nervous system. But we cannot control our autonomic nervous system. We know that our breathing rate, for example, is regulated by autonomic nervous system. So it cannot happen that suddenly we start breathing, and if we voluntarily want to inhibit our breathing or if we want to decrease our heart rate, it cannot occur. But if we want to move and we want to take something in our hand, which is our motor movement, which is under somatic nervous system, we can do it. So under somatic nervous system we can do voluntary activities, but under autonomic nervous system we cannot do voluntary activities. So this chart is showing basically the classification of the nervous system into central and peripheral nervous system. We know that brain and spinal cord will constitute our central nervous system, and it is the center which will basically regulate how the different body parts move when we are talking about the somatic nervous system, and how different visceral functions of the body are acting, and what decisions to be made, and how coordination should be made between different systems of the body, and how instantaneous regulation may be made. This all is done by an integrating center, which is basically the brain. If it is reflex activity, the integrating center is spinal cord, but spinal cord still can be affected by the brain in order to modulate our different types of reflexes. So this one is the central nervous system. What is this? This is the peripheral nervous system, and we can see this peripheral nervous system has two parts. One is the somatic, which is under voluntary control, and other is the autonomic, which is further divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic, and these are the receptors which are given here: cholinergic receptors on which acetylcholine can act, and sympathetic adrenergic receptors on which the neurotransmitter norepinephrine will be acting. So you can remember from the mnemonic that nerves and norepinephrine, but adrenal medulla releases both epinephrine and norepinephrine in the blood under the effect of stimulation from the nervous system. What happens that adrenal medulla can release both the epinephrine and norepinephrine in the blood, but at the synapses of sympathetic nervous system, norepinephrine adrenergic neurotransmitter is present, and the receptors are alpha receptors and beta receptors, which are further classified into alpha 1, alpha 2, beta 1 and beta 2 receptors. Now we will be covering some brief anatomy which we are discussing along the physiological aspects, but the main purpose of this lecture is to basically cover the physiological effects. So the autonomic nervous system is the subdivision of the peripheral nervous system that we have already seen, and it regulates the activities that are not under the conscious control. And I have given you the examples that we cannot regulate our heart rate, or we cannot regulate our blood pressure, or we cannot inhibit our breathing. So smooth muscles, cardiac muscles and the glands, these are the effectors of autonomic nervous system. And among smooth muscles, blood vessels, gut wall, urinary bladder, and you will be learning multiple different types of examples of the viscera of the body which are composed of smooth muscle, and they are controlled by ANS. Similarly, cardiac muscle, you have already studied CVS in the first year, and you know that heart has both sympathetic and parasympathetic supply, but you know that heart rate can be controlled by sympathetic and parasympathetic, but contractility is more under the effect of sympathetic nervous system. Parasympathetic has very slight effect on the contractility of cardiac muscle. Similarly, glands are innervated by autonomic nervous system. These glands are sweat glands, salivary glands, and we will be studying other examples. It is well known that parasympathetic system is a system of rest and digest, and sympathetic nervous system is a system of fight, flight, or fright. Okay? So when you are eating, you are resting, it is parasympathetic, and when you are fighting or when you are learning something and when you are in competition, it is sympathetic nervous system. So where they are coming from? Anatomical divisions. physiological anatomy. This is important, and I know that you have studied this anatomy in your Snell neuroanatomy, as well as you have covered the anatomy of autonomic nervous system previously in the general anatomy. But briefly saying that this is the sympathetic division and this is the parasympathetic nervous system. The sympathetic division is called as thoracolumbar outflow and the parasympathetic is called craniosacral. Now you can yourself see it is thoracolumbar from the thoracic vertebra all the way to the lumbar vertebra. So it is, these are the nerves which are coming from these thoracic and lumbar vertebra. T1 from starting from T1 and it will move till L2, and these nerves later on, this is the sympathetic ganglia paravertebral chain, and these nerves will be supplying the eye, the skin, the salivary gland, the lungs, the heart, the stomach, the pancreas, the liver, gallbladder, the adrenal gland, urinary bladder, and the genitals. You can see that this is parasympathetic nervous system. We are saying that parasympathetic is craniosacral. So this is, you can see cranio, and later on you will see this is sacral. So cranio supplying the eye, the salivary gland, the heart, and the lungs, and this nerve supplying the stomach, the pancreas, and the liver, and sacral controlling the bladder and the genitals. So sympathetic may be termed as thoracolumbar and parasympathetic is craniosacral outflow. So see the parasympathetic nervous system. This is third cranial nerve, fifth cranial nerve, then seventh, then ninth, and 10th cranial nerve. You can see third cranial nerve supplying these ganglions, and then seventh and fifth cranial nerve supplying submandibular ganglion, the submandibular gland, and you can see this is the 10th cranial nerve, and the you can see parasympathetic supply the stomach, pylorus, colon, small intestine. The vagus is the longest nerve carrying parasympathetic fibers with it, and this is the sacral outflow controlling defecation and the maturation reflex. This part anus, and this is the bladder involving the showing the involvement of parasympathetic nervous system. So parasympathetic outflow, cranial outflow, third cranial nerve, pupil constrict, seventh cranial nerve, production of tears, nasal mucus and saliva, then ninth cranial nerve supplying the parotid salivary gland, and 10th vagus nerve, visceral organs of thorax and abdomen. It stimulates the digestive glands. When you will eat, we are saying that parasympathetic is the system of rest and digest. It will increase the motility of smooth muscles of the digestive tract. It can decrease the heart rate, already discussed. It causes bronchoconstriction. What is sacral outflow? This one is the cranial outflow. This is the sacral outflow from pelvic splanchnic nerves, supplies the second half of large intestine for defecation reflex, and supply all the pelvic organs for maturation reflex and genital functions. Now this is the sympathetic, we are saying thoracolumbar outflow. So you can see the supply of eye, heart, bronchi, and then through celiac ganglion, and then through hypogastric plexus. These organs are being supplied, and you can see the supply of piloerector muscles and sweat glands and blood vessels. So sympathetic nervous system, fight, flight, or fright, also called thoracolumbar system, already discussed it. All its neurons are in lateral horn of the gray matter starting from T1 to L2, already shown on the diagram. It leads to every part of the body, unlike parasympathetic nervous system. So easy to remember that when nervous you sweat. You know that when you have to give the viva, what becomes? You start sweating, you are afraid, your hair stands, and when excited, blood pressure rises, so vasoconstriction. So these are the sympathetic only, and they cause dry mouth, pupils to dilate, because in fight and flight, if you have to see far things, so what will happen? Pupils will be dilated, increase heart rate, increase respiratory rate to increase oxygen supply to the skeletal muscles, and liver to release the glucose. So this is just for your remembrance that these functions, sweating and piloerection, also seen in case of animals. When you will study limbic system, you will study this phenomena, And when you are excited, what happens? Vasoconstriction occurs. You have already studied TTR increases. When you have dry mouth, when you have to give IVA some energy, you feel that you're sweating but your mouth becomes dry, and how pupils dilate and pupils increase heart rate. So these are all sympathetic. So moving to the next slide. You are already familiar with the terms pre and post ganglionic neurons. So, somatic division, cell bodies of motor neurons reside in the CNS, brain on the spinal cord, and their axons, which are seated in the spinal nerves, extend all the way to the skeletal muscles. In autonomic nervous system, there are chains of two motor neurons. First, preganglionic neuron in the brain on spinal cord, and second is the one is the preganglionic and other one is the postganglionic neuron, cell body in the ganglion outside the CNS. So, in case of somatic nervous system, you have already studied the NMG, and you have seen that cell bodies of the motor neurons are residing in the central nervous system, and their axons will extend all the way to the skeletal muscle, and they will make the neuromuscular junction. And you are very familiar with the concept of motor unit, that how the neurons are controlling cluster of muscle fiber, which is called motor unit. And in autonomic nervous system, we have the preganglionic and the postganglionic neurons. Now the pre and postganglionic fibers. Axon of first preganglionic neurons leave the CNS to synapse with the second ganglionic neuron, and axon of the second postganglionic neuron extends to the organ to innervate it. So in this diagram, you can see this is the comparison of that we have studied. We are studying the comparison of somatic and autonomic nervous system side by side, so that things become clear. Otherwise, I know that all of you are well familiar with these terms such as preganglionic and postganglionic neurons. So this is the spinal cord. You can see this is somatic motor neuron. What is this? This is the ventral root, which is supplying the skeletal muscle. Now what is this? This was the, we were talking about somatic nervous system. This is the, basically we have already studied that these sympathetic neurons are present in the lateral gray horn of the spinal cord. So this is the lateral gray horn. This is the preganglionic neuron. What is happening? That this is the axon which is coming out. Now it is synapsing with the autonomic ganglia, which is placed outside the spinal cord, and this is the ganglion neuron cell body, and this is now the postganglionic neuron innervating the smooth muscle gland or visceral organ, for example intestine. So this is somatic nervous system, this is the autonomic nervous system. So this is a very good diagram. You can see somatic nervous system, CNS having the neuron. This is the NMJ, acetylcholine is released, and the skeletal muscle will perform its function under the effect of CNS motor command. This is CNS, autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic division. You can see that here you will be having acetylcholine at the preganglionic synapse, and at the postganglionic synapse you are also having acetylcholine. This is the sympathetic division. You can see at the preganglionic you are having acetylcholine, and at the postganglionic you have norepinephrine. So in MCQ it can come that at both the preganglionic parts you have acetylcholine, but in the postganglionic sympathetic you have norepinephrine, and in the postganglionic parasympathetic neurotransmitter is acetylcholine. And here you can see this is adrenal medulla. So here acetylcholine is released, and it will release epinephrine and norepinephrine and dopamine and other peptides in the bloodstream that will move through the blood and act on the effector organs. This is in comparison with these nerves. This is not present in case of adrenal medulla. Now sympathetic and parasympathetic ganglia. So sympathetic ganglia may lie close to the spinal cord, such as paravertebral chain, which I already showed in the diagram when we started the lecture. Others lie approximately midway between the spinal cord and the effector organs, such as prevertebral or periapical. And parasympathetic ganglia lie close to or within the walls of the effector organs. So this is a diagram. This is spinothalamic and spinoreticular tract, and this you will be studying in the, or I think you have already studied this in the sensory nervous system. Now you can see this is the this is the spinal nerve, and you can see that this is the sympathetic postganglionic neuron, and this is the prevertebral ganglion, and here the fibers are going to the target cells. These are the sensory nerves which are coming, and this is the this you can see that this red one from here it is coming, this red one is coming from the spinal cord. What we said that sympathetic neurons are located within the lateral horn of the spinal cord. So this is sympathetic neuron, fiber is moving, it is coming here, and it may go through this paravertebral chain, or it may synapse here, or it may just pass out of it and it may synapse with the prevertebral ganglion, and the postganglionic fibers are going to supply the target cells. Important neurotransmitters of sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous system: acetylcholine, cholinergic. It is the neurotransmitter of mainly the parasympathetic nervous system, as well as somatic nervous system, as well as preganglionic endings of the sympathetic nervous system. So fibers that release acetylcholine are called cholinergic fiber, or preganglionic neurons of ANS, and all postganglionic neurons of PNS division are cholinergic. It can come in MCQ. Norepinephrine, adrenergic neurotransmitter between the sympathetic and postganglionic fibers and their effector cells. Fibers that release norepinephrine are called adrenergic fibers. Most postganglionic neurons of sympathetic division are adrenergic. Few are cholinergic. It can come in MCQ, sweat glands, and some blood vessels in the skeletal muscle. And from here you should recall the skeletal muscle vasodilator system, which we studied in the short-term regulation of blood pressure, and during anticipatory changes that take place in response to exercise, that blood vessels become dilated within the skeletal muscle. How? Because they are basically they are releasing acetylcholine. Cholinergic receptors are the nicotinic receptors, which are found on the postganglionic cell bodies and all ANS ganglia, and they will respond, the nicotinic receptors will respond to the acetylcholine, which is released from both the sympathetic and parasympathetic. Muscarinic receptors are found on the cell membranes of all effector organs, for example smooth muscles, cardiac muscles, and the glands, and they bind with acetylcholine released from the parasympathetic postganglionic nerve fibers. So this was cholinergic receptors, postganglionic cell bodies in the ANS ganglia, and you can see muscarinic on the effector organs. So just recall a diagram which we discussed, in which we have seen all the synapses and from where which type of neurotransmitter is released. You can see that in the sequence first nicotinic receptors will come and then muscarinic receptors will come. So adrenergic receptors, alpha receptors, these are located at the sympathetic neuroeffector junctions, and alpha receptors will mediate excitation or increase in activity of the effector cells, and alpha receptors have greater affinity for norepinephrine that can come in MCQ. So types of alpha adrenergic receptors. Alpha adrenergic receptors are adrenergic receptors. They will respond to norepinephrine. Already discussed that they are of two types, alpha 1 and alpha 2, which you have already studied in your CVS module when you studied the receptors on the cardiac muscle and on the SA node and on the blood vessels. Alpha 1 receptors are found in smooth muscle. Here comes the heart and the liver, and their effects are vasoconstriction, intestinal relaxation, uterine contraction, and pupillary dilation. These are the alpha 2 receptors. These are found in platelets, muscular smooth muscles, nerve termini, pancreatic islets, and their effect include platelet aggregation, vasoconstriction, and inhibition of norepinephrine release and insulin secretion. So these effects can come in SCQ. Beta receptors, these are located postsynaptically at the sympathetic neuroeffector junctions of many organs. Beta receptors mediate relaxation and decrease activity of the effector cells. You have studied alpha receptors increase activity and excitation, and beta receptors relaxation or decrease activity. Heart muscle is an important exception to this rule. Activation of beta adrenergic receptors in the heart increases the automaticity and contractility of all parts of the heart. So this must be remembered. So beta receptors are of three types. Alpha receptors were of two types: alpha receptors mediated excitation, beta receptors mediated relaxation, except the heart. So beta adrenergic receptors, alpha adrenergic receptor responded to norepinephrine, and beta adrenergic receptors having more affinity to epinephrine than norepinephrine. So beta 1 adrenergic receptors are located in the heart and they are sensitive to both epinephrine and the norepinephrine. Beta 2 adrenergic receptors are located in the lungs, in the GIT tract, in the liver, uterus, muscular smooth muscles, skeletal muscles, and they are sensitive to norepinephrine only, can come in MCQ. And beta 3 receptors are located in the fat cells. This is also an important question that comes in paper, that what are the effects of beta 3 receptors. So this is a diagram showing that this is basically the, you can see terminal ganglion coming from the nervous system. This is acetylcholine. The first receptor that will come will be nicotinic receptor, and on the effector cells you will be having muscarinic receptors. So this is the sympathetic ganglion. Here you are having same nicotinic receptors, and acetylcholine will be released, and at the effector cells norepinephrine will be released or epinephrine will be released, and you will be having alpha receptors. This is the adrenal medulla. Here acetylcholine will be released. So in all the preganglionic, acetylcholine and nicotinic receptors, acetylcholine and nicotinic receptors, acetylcholine and nicotinic receptors, and here too. And in the postganglionic, in case of parasympathetic, this is the muscarinic receptors. These are in the sympathetic. These are the basically norepinephrine acting on the alpha receptors and epinephrine acting on the beta receptors. And you can see epinephrine and norepinephrine acting on the respective receptors. And this is the adipose tissue, and here you can see that initially acetylcholine is released, nicotinic receptors, and at the postganglionic adipose tissue beta 3 receptors and acetylcholine. Adipose tissue, here you have muscarinic receptors and acetylcholine will be released. So most endocrine glands and some exocrine glands having epinephrine or epinephrine as the neurotransmitter. In case of adipose tissue, you have in the cells you have beta 3 receptors, but in case of glands there may be release of acetylcholine, and which we have studied previously in exceptions, and we will elaborate the what is the type of supply in the glands. It is different in sweat glands and in case of apocrine glands and other type of glands. So adrenal gland is an exception. You know that adrenal medulla is a major organ of the sympathetic nervous system, and we have already discussed this. Adrenal gland, so you can see this is the adrenal gland, and it has preganglionic nerve endings coming from the sympathetic trunk. And what will happen, that in response to the stimulation it will release epinephrine and norepinephrine that will move through the blood and act on the receptors. Epinephrine and norepinephrine both are released, even dopamine and some peptides are released. So this is the graph which shows these are the effector organs. This is parasympathetic nervous system. Now you can see the receptor type and the response. So this is a diagram. I will move the cursor up. So this column is showing the effector organs, the effect of parasympathetic nervous system, and in comparison what is the effect of sympathetic nervous system. So receptors are shown and the response is shown. So in case of eyes, this question also comes in exam to see the effect, to show the effect of sympathetic and parasympathetic on the eyes or on the heart, and other systems are also elaborated. So you can see radial muscles of the iris. What will happen, these are mainly having for1 receptors, and they will be stimulated under sympathetic nervous system, and the response will be contraction or mydriasis. You have already studied that pupils dilate when sympathetic nervous system activates. Now, what is parasympathetic nervous system? The opposite effect is sphincter muscles of the iris contraction, which is also called miosis. So, pupil will constrict, and ciliary muscles contraction for the near vision, the steps of accommodation reflex. Now, on the heart, what are the effects of parasympathetic and sympathetic on SA node, AV node, and Purkinje fibers, and atria and the ventricles? On the SA node, parasympathetic nervous system will decrease the heart rate, and the receptors will be the same muscarinic receptors, and in the sympathetic nervous system, beta 1 receptors and increase heart rate. And atria and the ventricles decrease contractility by the parasympathetic nervous system, which is only slight effect, but beta 1 and beta 2 receptors increase contractility of the cardiac muscle and conducting tissue. So parasympathetic nervous system will reduce the conduction velocity, and sympathetic nervous system acting through beta 1 and beta 2 receptors will increase the conduction velocity. So the same chart is continuing. You can see these are the organs, and here you will see the effect of parasympathetic nervous system, and in this column you will see the effect of sympathetic nervous system, and these are the receptors, and in the parasympathetic nervous system, receptors are the muscarinic receptors. So coronaries having alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors, when they are stimulated, it will lead to constriction, already studied, and beta 2 receptors, it will lead to dilation. You know that beta receptors are mediating relaxation and alpha receptors are mediating constriction. So in skin, alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors mediating constriction. These are the effect of sympathetic nervous system. Skeletal muscles, alpha 1 receptors mediating constriction, and beta 2 receptors and the muscarinic receptors mediating dilation. In abdominal viscera, alpha 1 receptors mediating constriction, and in salivary glands, muscarinic receptors mediating dilation of the blood vessels, and in alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors mediating constriction, so less blood flow to the gland, and the mouth will become dry, that we have previously discussed. And in the renal system, alpha 1 receptors activated constriction, so when we are in a state of fight and flight, the rest and digest organs are receiving less blood supply, so alpha 1 receptors mediating constriction. Similarly, systemic veins, through alpha 1 and alpha 2 receptors there is constriction, and in the beta 2 receptors there is dilation. Lungs, bronchial muscles contraction, parasympathetic activation, bronchial muscles reduce diameter, and in beta 2 receptor activation leading to relaxation. When we have to undergo fight and flight, what happens? There is bronchodilation, so that inhalation and exhalation can be maintained more easily. Stomach, motility and tone, sphincters and secretion. So parasympathetic function increases motility and tone, sphincter relax, so that food can be moved from one segment to the other segment. Already you have studied these things, and secretions will be increased. But in case of sympathetic nervous system, fight and flight system, so alpha 1, alpha 2 and beta 2 receptors lead to decrease in the motility and tone, and sphincters will be contracted, and secretion will be inhibited. In case of intestine, similarly, parasympathetic increasing motility and tone, sphincter relaxation, and secretion stimulation and gallbladder contraction, so that it can also contribute to secretion. And in case of sympathetic, alpha 1, alpha 2 receptors, beta 1, beta 2 receptors, all inhibition, alpha 1 contraction, alpha 2 inhibition of the secretion. Sphincters will contract, and gallbladder, like vasoconstriction, sphincters will contract through alpha receptors, and gallbladder beta 2 relaxation. So urinary bladder, detrusor muscle contraction under the effect of sympathetic nervous system, and relaxation under the effect of, so this is parasympathetic and this is sympathetic. So detrusor will contract and sphincter will relax, and maturation reflex will be mediated by parasympathetic nervous system. And uterus, variable effects, and in male sex organ you can see the effect that comes in MCQs. And in detrusor, beta 2 muscles relaxation, alpha 1 receptors mediate contraction of the sphincter, so during rest and during sympathetic activation you can see that the person will not pass urine. It is the parasympathetic, the sphincter will be relaxed and we will pass the urine. And in uterus, contraction and beta 2 relaxation. So in skin, pilomotor muscles and sweat glands, they are having alpha 1 receptors and pilomotor muscles contraction. So during the sympathetic nervous system, effects. We have also studied that there is piloerection. During the slide discussion, I gave you reference of limbic nervous system and sweat gland slide localized secretion by the activation of alpha 1 receptors. Alpha 1 and beta 2 receptors activated, leading to glycogenolysis liver so that more glycogen can break down and more glucose can be available during exercise. Pancreas, exocrine and endocrine parts increases the secretion under parasympathetic and decreases secretion under sympathetic, and endocrine glands alpha 2 inhibit secretion under the sympathetic activation. Salivary glands produce watery secretion under parasympathetic because they will play a role during basically mastication of food, and during sympathetics alpha 1 and beta receptors they mediate thick viscous secretion, and lacrimal glands their secretion is under the effect of parasympathetic nervous system, and in adipose tissue we have beta 2 and alpha 2 and beta 3 receptors, and it will lead to lipolysis. So in this diagram it can create confusion. So these are remember that in adipose tissue these are basically the beta 3 receptors as shown, and that will lead to alpha 2 and beta 3 lipolysis. So don't become confused with this diagram because we have taken these diagrams from the internet, so some information may be may not be verified which is present on the internet, but in your book everywhere it is written that lipolysis is mediated under beta 3 receptors. So sympathetic and parasympathetic tone, how it is maintained, you know that tone is a passive state of contraction of the muscle, so sympathetic tone is maintained. You have already studied this thing in the CVS, but under the effect of continuous nerve traffic from the vasomotor center reaching through sympathetic nerves to the blood vessels, so sympathetic tone is maintained in the blood vessels as well as in the throat. So some of our organs having dual innervation, sympathetic and parasympathetic both, but so we were discussing sympathetic parasympathetic tone, and some you know that some viscera has dual innervation and some has one innervation, either from the sympathetic or the parasympathetic. And we are coming towards mass discharge, but before coming to the mass discharge I will like to elaborate. I have told you that you can recall that sympathetic tone that we studied in the short-term regulation of blood pressure, and there we studied that sympathetic tone is the partial state of contraction of blood vessels under the effect of sympathetic nerve firing constantly at a basal level. So the basal rate of activity of autonomic nervous system is called sympathetic and the parasympathetic tone. And sympathetic and parasympathetic tone does what? This tone allows a single division of ANS to increase or decrease the activity of a viscera or to constrict or dilate a vascular bed. In case it is sympathetic tone, so blood vessels can dilate or they can constrict. And normally sympathetic tone constrict the arterioles, and parasympathetic tone maintains normal blood motility. So this is basically related with the sympathetic and parasympathetic tone. So what is tone? Tone is the state of partial constriction of a muscle, and in case of skeletal muscle tone, you know it is supplied by the motor system, and in case of sympathetic system it is supplied by the sympathetic nerve, example or blood vessels, and in case of parasympathetic the example is GLT or the urinary bladder. Now dual innervation, you know that sympathetic stimulation causes excitatory effect in some organs but inhibitory effect in other organs, as we have already seen this in case of table which we discussed in different slides. And parasympathetic stimulation causes excitation in some organs but inhibition in others, like the organs of rest and digest. And opinionally, the two divisions of ANS will act reciprocally in an organ, with one system causing increase in activity and the other system will cause a decrease in activity, and most organs are permanently controlled by only one of the two systems, like gut, like urinary system. These are mainly controlled by the parasympathetic, and blood pressure regulation is mainly controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. Similarly, our contractility mainly controlled by the sympathetic nervous system. So What is mass discharge? Mass discharge is basically the fight and flight response, and it basically involves the stimulation of adrenal medulla under the effect of sympathetic nerves, which is also part of fight and flight response. All the sympathetic nervous system is activated in the body, all the sympathetic actions become enhanced, but it is along with the activation of adrenal medulla, which will cause the release of large quantities of epinephrine and norepinephrine. And 80% of the secretion of adrenal medulla is, remember, comes in MCQs, it is epinephrine, and only 20% is norepinephrine. And the effect of epinephrine and norepinephrine that are released from the adrenal medulla will last 5 to 10 times longer when they are released by the sympathetic neurons, because these hormones are now coming directly in the circulation, and their half-life is such that when they are released in the circulation, they will stay 5 to 10 times longer as compared to when they are secreted at the synapses. And the circulating norepinephrine will cause vasoconstriction, increase heart rate and contractility, and inhibition of gut, and it will lead to dilated pupils. And the circulating epinephrine, because of its ability to strongly stimulate the beta receptor, what it will do, it will have a greater effect on the cardiac performance as compared to norepinephrine. So remember that adrenal medulla secreting 80% epinephrine and only 20% norepinephrine, and the response will last 5 to 10 times longer as compared to the response that is mediated by norepinephrine released at the synapse. And the circulating norepinephrine, what it is doing, it is causing vasoconstriction, heart rate increase, and contractility of heart increase. So it is basically the vascular system, and what it is doing with the eyes dilated pupils, and it is inhibiting the rest and digest system, so that the GLT and the urinary system. And the circulating epinephrine, because it can act on the beta receptors due to its greater affinity for the beta receptors, it has effect on the cardiac performance greater than does the norepinephrine. And epinephrine causes only reconstriction of the blood vessels in the muscles, resulting in a slight increase in the arterial pressure, but a dramatic increase in the cardiac output. And we know that when we are exercising under the fight and flight response, sympathetic nervous system will increase the systolic blood pressure, but it will decrease the diastolic blood pressure in severe exercise, because arterioles will dilate initially under the effect of this sympathetic vasodilator system, and later due to the metabolites that are produced in the skeletal muscle, blood vessels will dilate. And epinephrine and norepinephrine are always released by the adrenal medulla at the same time that the organs are directly stimulated by the generalized sympathetic activation. And this dual mechanism of sympathetic stimulation will provide a safety factor to ensure optimal performance when it is needed. So this is important, that both the nervous stimulation and the epinephrine norepinephrine release from the adrenal medulla will work simultaneously to increase the effect. And what is mass discharge? How it is defined? That sympathetic nervous system will become very active, and it will cause widespread reaction throughout the body. And it is also called mass discharge. It is also called alarm or the stress response. And sympathetic activation, it may occur in the widespread areas of the body, but there are examples when it can occur in the isolated areas of the body. For example, it may cause local vasodilation and sweating in response to local increase in temperature. For example, when you are sitting in front of the heater, some parts that are more exposed, they will become hot, and it will lead to vasodilation and sweating. The parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for highly specific changes in the visceral functions, such as changes in the salivary and gastric secretion, in bladder and rectal emptying. And parasympathetic cardiovascular reflexes act only on the heart to increase or decrease heart rate, and they have little effect on the vascular resistance as well as on the cardiac contractility. So in this slide we have discussed sympathetic and the parasympathetic tone. Sympathetic tone you already know, and parasympathetic you come from the you can see that this tone is maintained in the gut and in the viscera, like urinary bladder. Dual innervation, we have seen that some organs are supplied by the sympathetic and parasympathetic both, but these organs are dominantly controlled by one of the system, but there are other organs which are only supplied by one type of innervation. Mass discharge, you have seen that widespread sympathetic response, and in the local responses I have discussed that sometimes there are there is local activation in isolated areas of the body, and you know that sympathetic nervous system is for fight and flight and parasympathetic for rest and digest. It is basically regulating the secretions, the motility. It is regulating, or if we consider the CVS, it is regulating the heart rate, as well as it is not basically affecting the contractility or the vascular resistance as sympathetic system is doing, because the blood vessels, they are having only the sympathetic innervation, no the parasympathetic innervation. Similarly, cardiac muscle having only sympathetic innervation, no parasympathetic stimulation. And widespread activation of sympathetic nervous system, how it is occurring, it can result as a result of fear, as a result of anger, which is rage, and as a result of severe pain. For example, if anyone has experience of severe pain, as seen in case of appendicitis, or when there is fracture of the bone, what happens, that sympathetic nervous system become activated because of severe pain, and what happens, that alarm or stress response, that result is called fight or flight reaction, and there is wide sympathetic activation resulting in what, arterial pressure increase, muscle blood flow increase, metabolic rate increase, blood glucose concentration, glycogenolysis, mental alertness, and decrease in blood flow to the rest and digest organs, which are GIT, kidneys, and a shorter coagulation time. These effects allow an individual to perform far more strenuous activity than would otherwise be possible. So this is basically the what is fight and flight response, what is alarm or stress response, and how it is activated, what are the stimuli, and what are the signs and symptoms when it becomes activated. So I will here like to mention that these sympathetic and parasympathetic areas, these are regulated by hypothalamus and higher centers. These things we have also discussed, these things have been discussed during the CVS module when we studied short-term regulation of blood pressure, and here in your book again it is mentioned that medullary pontine and mesencephalic, which is the midbrain area, and higher areas of the brain control autonomic activities. For example, when we become angry, suddenly our heart rate increase, so it is through the limbic system which is activating the hypothalamus, and through the hypothalamus we are controlling autonomic nervous system, sympathetic and the parasympathetic nervous system. So many neuronal areas in the brain stem reticular substance along the course of tractus solitarius of medulla pons and midbrain, as well as special nuclei control autonomic functions such as arterial blood pressure, heart rate, glandular secretion, and GIT peristalsis, degree of contraction of urinary bladder. So these nuclei, for these functions, there are special nuclei, special centers in the nervous system, and signals from the hypothalamus and from the cerebrum influence the activity of all the brainstem autonomic control centers. So just like there are, you have studied the concept of neuronal pools in the sensory nervous system. So what are neuronal pools? Neuronal pools are the centers which are physiological centers controlling some function. So if there are centers for the regulation of respiration, center for the regulation of blood pressure, heart rate, so these are basically the autonomic centers which are present in the brain stem, and they control autonomic functions. For example, stimulation in appropriate areas of the posterior hypothalamus can activate medullary cardiovascular control centers to increase the heart rate, and other hypothalamic centers control body temperature. You know that you have studied functions of hypothalamus, so increase and decrease libation, GIT activity, and bladder emptying. So autonomic nervous system centers in the brainstem can act as relay stations for the control activities initiated at higher levels of the brain, especially in the hypothalamus. So these autonomic centers or neuronal pools, autonomic neuronal pools, which are located in the brainstem, these are influenced by hypothalamus, and in turn hypothalamus, we know that it is influenced by the cerebral cortex and the limbic system. Now there are some exceptions which can come in paper related with the blood vessels. You have seen that blood vessels have sympathetic innervation, but in the skeletal muscles, blood vessels, you have beta adrenergic receptors leading to vasodilation, and there is skeletal muscle vasodilator system in which within the sympathetic nerves vasodilator fibers are present. Similarly, we have exceptions including the sweat glands and the salivary glands. So here we can discuss all the glands. The nasal, lacrimal, salivary, GIT glands, these are stimulated by the parasympathetic nervous system. So you can remember, like On the face, you have nasal glands, you have salivary glands, and you have lacrimal glands related with the eye. So, nose, eye, and in the oral cavity, nasal, lacrimal, and salivary glands, and the GIT glands. These are stimulated by parasympathetic nervous system. What happens when they are stimulated? There is copious quantities of watery secretion. Now coming to the sympathetic stimulation. Sympathetic stimulation will cause vasoconstriction of the blood vessels that are supplying these glands, and what will happen that there will be less rate of secretion of these glands. And what will happen when sympathetic nervous system is activated? It will act on the glandular cells, and it will lead to formation of concentrated secretion that contains extra enzymes and the mucus. So nasal, lacrimal, salivary, and GIT glands stimulated by parasympathetic. More secretion stimulated by sympathetic secretion becomes concentrated, but it has extra enzymes and mucus. Now coming to the sweat glands. Sweat glands secrete large quantities of sweat when sympathetic nerves are stimulated, and parasympathetic has no effect on the sweat gland secretion. And this should be noted, and it can come in MCQ that parasympathetic stimulation has no effect on the sweat glands. We are sweating when we are nervous, remember this thing. And sympathetic fibers to the more sweat glands are cholinergic, just like sympathetic vasodilator system. And almost all other sympathetic fibers are adrenergic. You know that sympathetic fibers are adrenergic, but to the sweat glands these are cholinergic. But the sweat glands are activated by sympathetic nervous system. They do not have parasympathetic, but these sympathetic fibers are having neurotransmitter which is cholinergic. Now coming to the apocrine glands, these are present in the axilla, and they secrete a thick odoriferous secretion, means that it is having a smell, and as a result of sympathetic stimulation they produce thick odoriferous secretion, and these glands do not respond to parasympathetic stimulation. And the apocrine glands are controlled by adrenergic fibers rather than by cholinergic fibers. So you have seen that nasal, lacrimal, salivary, and GIT glands are stimulated by sympathetic as well as parasympathetic nervous system. But the sweat glands and apocrine glands are stimulated by sympathetic nervous system, and they are not responding to the parasympathetic nervous system. But the sweat glands, their fibers are cholinergic, but in the apocrine glands the fibers are adrenergic. And these things are important, and they can come in the exam. And regarding gut, you know that gut has its own plexus which is called intramural GIT plexus, and that has been discussed in the GIT module, and its activity can be upregulated or downregulated by the activation of parasympathetic and sympathetic. Parasympathetic upregulation and sympathetic downregulation of GIT functions. So visceral reflexes. These are the simplest functions of autonomic nervous system. Each visceral reflex consists of, just like other reflex are, receptor, sensory neuron, interneuron, and two visceral motor neurons. And all visceral reflexes are polysynaptic. All polysynaptic reflexes include gastric and intestinal reflexes, defecation, urination, direct light reflexes, swallowing, cough, baroreceptor reflex, and sexual arousal. And these are the all visceral reflexes are polysynaptic, and these are the parasympathetic reflexes. Sorry, this is not polysynaptic. And these are the sympathetic reflexes: cardioacceleratory reflex and pupillary reflex, and the vasomotor reflexes. So we have studied central nervous system having central nervous system and the peripheral nervous system. Peripheral nervous system divided into the somatic nervous system and the autonomic nervous system. So somatic under the control of voluntary will, and visceral which is not under our voluntary control, and these visceral reflexes are controlled by the autonomic nervous system. These are examples of parasympathetic reflexes, and these are examples of sympathetic reflexes. So visceral reflex are, you can see similar sensory receptor in the viscera. For example, you take an example of defecation reflex and maturation reflex, and you can fit it in this reflex arc, and then you will be able to understand that these are the visceral reflexes, and these are taking place all the time in the body, but we are not aware of these reflexes because these are taking place all the time in the body, but the reflexes like defecation and maturation, which do require voluntary control of the somatic nervous system, we become aware of these reflexes. So sensory receptor stimulation, the message is going through dorsal root ganglion within the spinal cord, and here integrating center may be preganglionic neuron, and this is the preganglionic axon, and this is the autonomic ganglion. And what is happening to the effector organ, the response will occur. So visceral reflex are, this is the autonomic reflex, and higher centers can control these reflexes. For example, enteric nervous system, the reflexes are, you know that the 3 neuron reflex are present entirely within the wall of the gut. So central control of autonomic nervous system we have already discussed. Cerebral cortex affecting the limbic system, which is affecting the hypothalamus, and then it is affecting the reticular formation, and then it is affecting the spinal cord, and through the spinal cord, which is the main integrating center of the autonomic nervous system, reflexes or visceral reflexes. But these reflexes can be regulated by the effect of these higher centers, that when we become angry or when we become excited, our heart rate increases and temperature increases. So this is basically all about the autonomic nervous system. In the end of the chapter, some drugs are mentioned which can mimic the effect of autonomic nervous system. Some drugs are generalized, some drugs have generalized sympathetic effect, some have parasympathetic effect, and some drugs are specific blockers. So you will be studying the effect of drugs on autonomic nervous system in the clinical lecture of the autonomic nervous system. Thank you and most welcome for any queries, and along with this lecture I will upload a video that will be helpful regarding the concept of autonomic nervous system, and the chapter of autonomic nervous system is chapter number 60 of the Guyton, and it is enough if you go through the lecture and you can cover this autonomic nervous system from only Guyton, because it is given in a good manner in the Guyton. So please watch the video after this lecture. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum.